Hey everyone, Joey here. So I released a driving mod for Cyberpunk for mouse and keyboard the other day. It does work with controllers too, and it's mainly based on increasing immersion. So by default on mouse and keyboard especially, we have no variable rate acceleration because we don't have pressure sensitive keys. So normally when we press W, it's max throttle. And then if we want to slow the car down, the only downshifting we get is as if we coast. So basically letting go of accelerate. If the car's coasting along, it will eventually hit gear shift points where you'll hear the car downshift, but it is very, very slow. And what this mod does is it changes the W value to a very low 0.2 value, so the base value is 1. And that means you can accelerate very slowly, and then it adds shift as a modifier for more acceleration, so it's a 1.5 modifier, and then control is a 0.02 deceleration, which actually adds downshifting. So when you hold control, your car will a bit quicker than, better than coasting. You'll get engine noise as the car downshifts. And you can also combine decelerate with S, so together for faster downshifting. And I demonstrated it in my first upload of the mod, in my first version, and now I'm up to version 1.2, and I wanted to share an additional functionality. So I'll just quickly show you the downshifting. So if I speed up, see, we'll go about 100, and then if I hold control, you can hear it downshift. And that's what we couldn't do before on PC, and at least not with the mouse and keyboard. And now if I want to downshift faster, so this is already part of the original release, is you go control and then add S, and you can see I can actually downshift really fast. So it's more, that's why it's called immersive driving, because it's not necessarily going to change how well you can handle the car. You can still stop the car with S, but when you try to do that by default, the default S doesn't actually give you any downshifting noise. So if I just press S, you can see there's zero downshifting, you don't get any engine noise, and it stops really quick, so you can't really control the speed of the car and judge distances that well. So now what I've added in 1.2 is the mouse 5, which is the higher thumb button, so not the one closest to the mouse wheel or the left click. So there's two thumb buttons, not the one closer to your palm, but the one higher up. That's mouse 5. And that is on an extremely low value, and what that lets you do is you can speed up to a certain speed, under 50 preferably, and speeds under 50, you can actually just hold down this button and it'll give you like a semi-cruise control. So semi meaning if there's variations in the road that decline or incline, you'll actually lose or gain speed because of that slight incline or decline, but you will hold a fairly stable speed. Like if you're going around 40, you'll stay around 40, as long as the road's flat. So I'll just demonstrate that here. We'll just go up to 20. And at 20, it will pick up speed because that's a bit too slow for it. But if I just hold down mouse 5 now at 20, by default, we would have had to keep tapping accelerate on the default controls. And that's the only way you could maintain a particular speed. But now we can hold mouse 5. And wait, I'm going a bit too fast. I'll slow down. Now I can go down to, say, here, we're going at 20. And if we were just trying to cruise along and take a look at something, you won't just suddenly pick up speed. And you don't have to tap anything. You don't hear the engine revving like you do when you're trying to maintain speed with... You can see I really quickly picked up speed to 40 as soon as I pressed accelerate. So, yeah, you just hold down this modifier. I'll put it to 20 again, so you can see. And now that's all I'm pressing is the mouse 5 button. And you can see we're slowly gaining speed. It cruises around 30 to 40, more respectfully. So we'll see where it picks up here. This road is fairly flat, it's a little bit bumpy. But you can see we're going up to 40, and it will hold around 40 fairly well, 40 to 50. But more importantly, it's like if you're driving around and you just want to look at something and you're going any speed under 50, you'll be able to just hold this button down, look at it, and if it does slowly pick up speed, it's so gradual that it's not like immersion braking compared to having the tap buttons all the time. You can see here, yeah, even reaching 30, it's taken a while. So that's the purpose of this. It's good for slow driving, good for car parks, and I added an additional function, so it's not just a cruise control button. If you're holding mouse 5 and you're, for example, city driving, like this, like I'm doing here in this area, we'll just pretend this is a car park in the city, like we're on the outskirts, but it doesn't matter. And if I'm holding mouse 5 and I press left to turn, mouse 5 will slow down the turning, like it'll half the turning angle, so that I can make smooth turns like this. Low speed turns, without having to, you know, tap left and right. So as you can see, the turning circle is very relaxed, and it's wider. So you'll have to practice with it. Obviously, you have to get used to the controls, but basically, it lets you have wide turns. And then as soon as I let go of mouse 5, if I want to make a sharper turn, the default turning circle is actually fairly tight. So you can make, you know, sharp left turns and right turns. If I want to, if I'm not pressing mouse 5, you can see how much tighter the turning circle gets. So by default, it's like this for city driving, because a lot of the city streets are actually pretty sharp. But then when you get, for say, an on-ramp on the highway, or even this car park, like the entrance road up ahead, is fairly wide, then I can hold mouse 5 and just get that smoother turning. See what I mean? That wider turning angle. So that's the purpose, and yeah, it just makes following roads like this look a fair bit smoother. But obviously there's a certain speed, like I'm going a bit too slow to make it look smooth, but even if I tap it, it's not as bad as tapping it without the mouse 5. So at the full turning and you're trying to like slightly adjust the movement, the car will do this, and it's harder to get, like you have to tap it so much more lightly to follow a slight bend in the road. So you can see this, how the car's jerking a little bit more for this on-ramp. You can see the wheel even, just from me tapping left and right. So for example here, and now if I'm highway driving, I can hold down mouse 5 with accelerate, and I can smoothly follow a slight curvature in the road. Like the car is, you're not seeing it jerking around, you're not seeing the wheel moving even nearly as much. Sorry, I spun out there. I was accelerating too fast. But you can see, just by holding mouse 5, I stabilized the turning of the car. So this is with mouse 5. The turning adjustment, it cuts your turning circle in half, basically, as a modifier key. And that doesn't matter if you're also going at higher speed, it's still holding down mouse 5 will give you that smoother lane changes. Then if I let go of it, you can see I can fishtail pretty easily. You can still drift, you know, but that takes practice. It's just to do with spacebar. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because it's functionality we didn't really have in the base game before. Like there's similar mods, but there's been nothing updated properly for 1.6 with proper descriptions, and I'm pretty sure there's 1.5 mods that work the same way with slightly different values, but the same general idea. So I just wanted to give more of an instructional tutorial for that, and you can still go fast. Like someone downloaded the mod and said now my acceleration sucks, and if you're running other mods that affect car handling, especially I think Cyber Vehicle Overhaul, these acceleration values might not make much of a difference because the torque is so much higher on those mods. So you'll have to either uninstall those mods or adjust the values in the XML file, which is all this mod is, and you'll be able to get it working with Cyber Vehicle. Like functionally it works, the buttons will work, the hotkeys should work with Cyber Vehicle Overhaul. It's just the cars themselves have different acceleration values. Like that's what it modifies, and it's not an XML, the Cyber Vehicle. So one more thing, if you're new to driving in Cyberpunk with mouse and keyboard as well, and you're having issues with, for example, doing a U-turn at higher speed, there are a couple of tricks you can actually, that are good to know that you might not know. Like you have to discover them for yourself, but if someone tells you, hey, you can do this, it might benefit the speed that you pick up the driving. Is when you're doing something like a high-speed turn, I'll just get onto this, so this is a really tight, this is an on-ramp, I don't even know what that is. When you're doing a tight turn, you can actually tap S in conjunction with spacebar, so you can see tap S like that, and it will actually give you a tighter turn than if you're just holding. So you can use spacebar to give you a bit of a skid, but more importantly, don't just try to make a tight turn by holding A and S, because as you can see the car stops, and so you need some kind of acceleration. And with this mod you can actually hold shift, which is accelerate, A and S, and then if you want it to be tighter you just have to practice your button pressing. So as you can see, I'm not sure if I can demonstrate it fully properly because it's just my own driving style. But what you can do, like the possibility to make a tight U-turn like that, is there with enough practice. And it works much better at lower speed. Like, high-speed U-turns will slide out, that's just normal. But you can see what my fingers are doing at the very least. Like, I'm actually tapping S in the middle of that U-turn. And you see me quickly tap it, and for me it's second nature because I've been practicing. But if you haven't been practicing driving, you might not know that you can do that. You might just naturally be trying to spacebar through the turn, and that kind of works too, actually. You can just use spacebar. See, that's cooler. That's a cooler way to do it. But as you can see, having that shift functionality, which is a higher acceleration value without W, it just feels more natural when you're trying to do maneuvers with the car. Anyway, thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see if there's any more updates. One more thing is mouse 4, which is the lower thumb button on the mouse, can also be used for a cruise value. It doesn't affect the turning curvature, the turning circle, but it can be used as a higher cruise value. So instead of under 50, say I want to go about 70, I can actually hold mouse 4, and on this road, I'll just hold mouse 4, and you can see what the acceleration's doing. My hands are off the shift and the W. And it's basically another speed of cruising. And you can see it's holding about 65, and based on the road incline or decline, it will slowly pick up speed, but on a flat road it'll hover around 70. So the only thing is, if you want to cruise at 70, you don't just press this button to get up to 70. You have to actually manually speed up to the speed you want to cruise at with shift and W. And then when you're around that speed, that's when you hold this key down, and if you're up at 80, it'll slowly slow down to 70. And if you're, it's better if you can you can just hold the cruise button down, the mouse 4, and then just tap shift until you get up to the speed you want. But you can see that the throttle is much smoother. So if I hold control, for example, right now, it doesn't want to go under 65. It's still climbing to about 70. And if I want to add speed on top, I can press W to slowly accelerate, and I can also press shift to accelerate in small increments. So you can see I went from like 70 to 80, and if I want to go up to say 85, I'll just hold shift, and it's not as aggressive as the default driving. Like default driving, you just can't control it at all. You'll just keep going up until you let go of the button, and you've got to keep coasting. So by default, it's closer to this. You have to do that to hold 100. See what I'm doing? To maintain 100, that's the default behavior. And now I can just hold this mouse 4 button. And 100 is a little bit high, but the throttle at least is much smoother. See how the car's not jerking as much, even if I'm tapping shift, combined with the mouse 4, the car's not jerking around at all. So I just wanted to show you what you can do. And then down to a lower speed, I'll hold mouse 5, slow down to a lower cruising speed, and then I could tap S, I suppose, and you can see how much finer the control is. By holding mouse 5 and pressing S, I'm not suddenly slowing down as S normally does. It's actually very incremental. So 50, 40. So this is mouse 5 combined with S to slow down. 30, 20. But you can see how much more control I have. So, by default, if I just tried to do that with shift and S, S will do this. Like, it still works incrementally, but it is much harder to just target a value and get it to go to that speed without overshooting. So if I want to go to 40, for example, without using the cruise button, I'm using W, sorry, I've got to use shift. Shift is a default. W is a lower value with this mod. But yeah, by default, it was very hard to target a speed. So mouse 5 lets you have that granularity with accelerate. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next update if I come up with anything else. But this mod's basically complete. There's not really anything to add to it, apart from maybe improving the controller support, because controllers have pressure-sensitive triggers already, so you don't really need as much acceleration modification to get good acceleration and deceleration, but the downshifting was still an issue where you can't downshift as easily because you can't just tap right trigger. Like it's a bit weirder in how it works on control, but people using controller have said that the mod works well. So maybe the deceleration trigger at the 1 value doesn't work that well even on a pressure sensitive switch, in which case I put it as the shoulder buttons to drive slow and decelerate. So yeah, I don't have a control to test though, so I'll just have to wait for feedback from other controller users and we'll see what happens. So thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.